everybody. Welcome to my first job in tech, what to expect episode for Careerist podcast. One of your hosts, Andrew Riddle. Been a product designer, graphic designer for the last 20 years, and I am pleased to introduce our other host, Kim. How are you doing today?
Hey everybody, I am Kamitha. I am a user researcher. New title is AI Generative User Researcher. I know, right? Fancy. I work for Microsoft, best company ever. I've been in tech for 12 years now. Yes, I look very young for my age. Thank you in advance.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's, I mean, working for Microsoft, I mean, that's a huge, right? That's a company, everyone recognizes that. No one's asking like, they're like Microsoft, like what is that? What kind of company is that? And and think about like the titles and we talk a little bit about like a career path and how long we've been in it, but like how many kind of different agencies, different environments, would you say that you've worked in? Or like what are the different types of environments that you think that you've worked in? I've been thinking about that over the last week, how often my career path has changed and the different houses that I've worked in and how different and how much I've learned from it. But what has your experience been with that?
It's funny, I like the phrase "the different houses." So if we're talking about jobs, I like money. So I've been working since I was 15 when the IDs, I'm from Chicago originally. So our Illinois IDs had a penny in the middle. And you used to have to shift the ID in order to see your birthday. I don't know if that was just an Illinois thing or not, but I'm totally dating myself, but that's how old I am. But I think I had like a Gen Z mentality, but in a millennial body because I did not take crap until I became an adult when it came to jobs. So I was a job hopper. But once I graduated college, I kind of stopped. So I was at the same job for 12 years at Colorado Technical University. But I've been a banker, I've been a teller, I've worked at restaurants. I've been a researcher. I was a designer for 8 weeks.
Hmm.
That didn't work out. it's
Sure,
I
right.
was good, but I'm a better researcher. I'm better at communicating insights and pulling information from large data sets, and that was just my strength. I like beautiful things, but um, yeah, I think it was just that company. I was too much for them. But anyway, so that's my spiel. I've done it all though. I've never worked at a fast food restaurant, but I worked at a place called Matson Steakhouse, which is also a Chicago original. So anybody listening from Chicago, you got to give us a thumbs up or something on YouTube. But yeah, so I've had many jobs. So to your point, I've had many houses, and I finally built my brick house as a researcher, hopefully with Microsoft. But either way, um,
Sure.
I'm a researcher now. It's my house.
Yeah, it's
What
interesting
about
that
you?
you
I can only imagine it has to be as colorful. Your story has to be as colorful as mine.
my story is colorful. Well, all right. To be honest, my first job ever was as a child voice actor. I grew up outside of Orlando, Florida, and so there's a lot of Nickelodeon and all Universal Studios and stuff out there. So that was my first job. But my first real what I say my real job was like washing dishes. When I was 15, and but I started design pretty early. My father was a paginator for Southwestern Bell back in the day, so I've had a Macintosh since 1988, right? So I was very lucky in that situation. But when I started off as a graphic designer, I loved working with musicians and I played guitar but I wanted to be like involved in like promotion, so I started doing that. So I started really kind of doing like the freelance thing. And but then as my career started and I started going to college and I started working for like I mean I could say a small house, but like file prepping for a print house was my first like design job at a screen printing house called Atlas Print in St. Augustine, Florida. And then from there I did a lot of freelance stuff. I've worked for as a contractor for branding companies in Boulder, Colorado. I worked for privately owned agencies, marketing and communication agencies here in Dallas. And then I've done the enterprise thing where I've worked for American Airlines. Now I work for Walmart. global, and I've run the gamut. I've seen a lot of different types of work environments possible, and they've all offered something different, and I've been able to learn a whole lot of different things from them. Um, and I think that it's important, especially when people are kind of coming in to tech and trying to figure out where they want to go and what kind of environment would be best for them. I think they all have a lot to offer. Like and even not just working in design, but really everywhere. There's a lot of stuff that I've taken from the service industry, from being a bartender to a busser, a dishwasher, a server, that I have taken into the boardroom, being calm, working with stakeholders, just letting everybody kind of cool down a little bit, being able to take the heat. Um, I have a lot of designers, UX designers, graphic designers over the years who've come in, and I'll look at their and they're like, I'll be honest, I'm a contractor, I'm a freelancer. Like, I work in fine dining. That's how I pay my bills. I'm like, that's great. That's fantastic. I want to take those skills and we need to bring them in house, because there's so much you can learn from all of these different types of environments. And I'm sure that you've come across the same thing in your professional experience about the different type of work environments and the type of things that you can learn and bring into your life now, your present life. Those kinds of skills. Do you find that in your daily life?
Yeah, we call them soft skills. I don't know where that phrase came from, but that is by far my biggest strength, personality wise, but also my biggest strength that I bring to the industry. Um, and these soft skills are the skills that are intangible. So I'll give you an example. I'm able to create beautiful presentations, right? Pat
Hmm.
myself on the back, put that out in the
Good.
universe.
Excellent.
Um, and as a result, that's tangible. Someone can see my PowerPoint and see that I've created templates and I'm able to, you know, um, I'm not the best designer, but I'm a good one, right? And as a researcher, it's a huge benefit. But it's these soft skills that we don't talk about, those soft skills that you need when you're talking on an interview before they look at your portfolio a second time. The soft skills that it takes to deal with different stakeholders and their personalities. That's why I hope whoever's listening to this, if you're in the service industry, especially Illinois Bell, aka AT&T, yes, I'm that old. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. But those soft skills, they're invaluable. They're invaluable. There is nothing like being able to sit in a room comfortably or pretend comfortably, however you want to put it, and be able to speak to an audience in a way that they can understand. People will pay a lot of money in any discipline if you can simply communicate and get people to work together without burning bridges or like pissing them off or however you want to phrase that. And I think for me, that has hands down been my biggest asset. And I learned that being a waitress, dealing with customers that want to make, you don't play with people's food and you don't play with their money. And I dealt with both of those. So I think overall that's really helped me in the industry. And I have worked for other enterprise, which is I would call Microsoft Enterprise. I've worked for profit, whole nother ball game, aka corporate America, where it is cutthroat, but it taught me to be great and to be very sure in my opinions or my hypothesis of things, whether I have proof. Well, you always have proof, but no matter what that proof looks like, there's a confidence that comes when you know what you're doing. And so, I mean, hashtag not ashamed to plug careerists, but it's awesome, right? Because you get to practice. You get to practice an interview and practice your portfolio and practice defending your thoughts and defending your design regardless of what people think or regardless of what they don't agree with, and that's what's valuable and what people are looking for overall. So I would say the waitress aspect has been by far most valuable, which it makes sense once I'm able to communicate it, right? And then if I had to choose like where I would work, whether it's enterprise, a big organization, whether it's contract, the entrepreneur route where I work for myself, or whether it's like a for profit corporate America environment. I Microsoft, don't take it personal.
I'll work for the
Um,
person who signs my
right?
checks.
But there's so much freedom in working for yourself. It's scary. Let's
It's
be real.
true.
I have a family.
Yeah.
But the freedom that comes with that, and the what is the word that I'm looking for when you have just a lot of skill sets, because you've worked with all of these different projects and programs and stakeholders. Like, that's where my confidence came from. And now that I work for Microsoft, I have all these rules, and I like rules too, but if you have a personality like I do, it's awesome to be able to express yourself and your thoughts. But it's also important in the world that we live in to make sure that we follow the rules. So if I had to choose it, I would 100% do contract work because I can control my atmosphere. I can hopefully do more than one. And at Microsoft, I can personally tell you that we look at contract work just like a real job. Internships are looked at as far as you knowing and understanding and taking the initiative to learn something. But contract work is work, whether it's 6 months, 3 months, doesn't matter. And I would choose that just because I like to be in charge of my life. And I
Yeah.
have a lot
Yeah.
of freedom, don't get me wrong, but you have all the freedom
Right.
when you're
And I guess we probably should lay down that this is all real work, right? That's the,
that
we've
part.
been jumping around. We've done contract and freelance and enterprise and no work and looking for work and
We
open for
work.
work and all of the works that you could possibly think of, and it's all work. I mean,
Yes.
looking for a job is work. That's
Yes.
being open to work is work. That's stressful work. But I do agree. I did freelance and contract work for a long time, and there's a lot to learn from freelance, right? You have to, you're hitting the pavement. You got to hustle, and you have to just be able to learn on the cusp, like learn on your feet. If you have a client out there who says, "Oh yeah, great, you're helping with my website. By the way, do you know anything about, social media marketing?" Your answer is yes. You may not now, but give me 24 to 36 hours and I will know as much as I need to convince you that I can handle this next piece to you. And then that's, and I, one of the growth opportunities with tech and freelance and all of that, right, is always making yourself useful and learning, like being a self-starter. And I think something that comes from the freelance gig that I feel very fortunate about. And when I hire, freelancers, is that they wear a lot of hats, that they're not just designers, they're not just product designers, they're not just marketers. They'll take it on. They are willing to learn. They're willing to throw themselves in the fire, and they'll just take it. I'll sit down with stakeholders, and I'll sit down with designers, and I'll sit down with dev. I will sit down with anybody you need me to, because I feel like when you're a freelancer and your rent depends on it, your food depends on it, and you're depending on yourself, you learn how to make it happen. You learn how to make it work. Um, I was talking to someone this week about the unicorn, unicorn in the industry, right? The person who, the full stack developer who's a endless
I really
marketing
dislike that
pedigree. And
phrase, by the way.
it's a ridiculous phrase. It's,
Yeah.
first of all, unicorns are fictional creatures that don't exist. Okay. And moreover, if they did, they're born a unicorn, as far as I know. And I haven't read many unicorn books recently, but as far as I know, the unicorn that we all consider a unicorn is really just someone who takes on challenges, who is a goes and gets it, who is willing to say, I don't know how to do this, but I will learn how to do it. That's what it's really just some professional running around with like a cone on their head like an idiot because they know that they don't know anything and they have to go out and get it. That's the unicorn. But anybody can be that, right? Anybody can really self-start and get that. And I think that freelance environment really lends itself to it, because what are your opportunities? What are your choices, right? You're like, well, if I don't learn how to do this, like, then man, I don't pay rent. I don't, I'm eating, cup of noodle with some tuna fish and mayonnaise, by the way, which
Ramen
is a
noodles,
great
we've all been there.
caloric.
We've all been
Yeah,
there.
that
In
recipe was
college
not made
years,
up.
somebody's been
That
there
got me through
before.
it. But the thing is, they're like, oh well, for unicorn, sure. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't exist, right? You
Right.
go out there and you have the whole opportunity of, at your fingertips to learn whatever you need to learn, whether it be Figma or social media marketing or, and instead you don't have to go to university to do it, right? You don't have to get a master's degree in it. You can jump on a boot camp like Careerist. You can listen to podcasts like this. We have a reading. We have mentors. Go out there and talk to someone. And I think that's something that the designer lifestyle, especially with Behance and all, I think it's become a little bit more attractive. And I think that people, especially people are self-promoting with their own content and stuff like that, that it seems untouchable. And the truth is it's not. No one, we really don't know. We never knew where we were going when we started. Like in retrospect, it makes sense, but looking forward, it was real scary. And we had no idea where this path went. We just went for it. And I just want to, it's like, I think we all kind of learn. I think we both did, right? That in your experience, we were talking about taking on that first app when you were working at the university company, and you just have to say, yeah, I'll figure it out. Like because they're not hiring you because you know how to do it. We're hiring you because you're the type of person who can figure out how to do it. And that is something that will never be eclipsed, right? Those are those career growth opportunities, whether you're in your own house or you're an enterprise house, that will always be beneficial to you. Um, I think that's from the get go, kind of thinking about the beginning of my career, and where kind of aspiring designers are coming from and junior designers, is something they have to remember, is that no one, like no one knew what they were doing. Most of us don't really know what we're doing now, but we've been conditioned to confidence, and that's what it takes. Um,
We've learned to become problem solvers, and a
mhm,
lot of people run from the problem, or they expect someone to give them a to-do list. And if you are an individual who can run into the problem, and even if you don't solve the problem, if you are instrumental in coming towards the solution, because if you think about it, how many of you have been in a family argument and someone says something ridiculously stupid, but then it triggers something else that can, change the game, right? And that's kind of how it is. If we're talking about fictional characters, then they have to have a superpower, and that superpower would be being able to solve problems, whatever that may be. And I laughed. I was muting myself because I have kids. So, but I wish you could have heard me. I'm like 24 to 36 hours is hilarious. I cannot tell you how many times that has been the case. Like
mhm.
recently, I just had a presentation today, like, and maybe an hour ago. Been working on it for a week and a half. And as a researcher, what's really important is being able to communicate what your recommendations are, because I can't force anybody to do anything. I can silently lead and persuade and encourage them on my point of view. And so user quotes, um, once you get like permission and stuff from your user, videos and things like that can be very persuasive. It really can be, because you're hearing it from the user. So anyway, long story short, because I do that sometimes, I wanted to put a snippet of the video. I could not find the answer to save my life. Do you hear me? Finally, I had another researcher. She's like, try Clipchamp. You guys, God is my witness. An hour before the presentation, I figured it out and I put that video in there. And that's one video that stood out in the presentation. And that's one thing that can make the difference in a good presentation versus a great one, a good portfolio versus a great one. And I'm not saying put any snippets of videos. That was just that's what I did today. But just having the ability and the audacity to find the answer. If you can be that type of if you are that type of person, or you are choosing to become that type of person, because we all have choices, you can make a lot of money. Is all I can say. And I also, because we've been talking about like our favorite places or favorite ways of working, which is the entrepreneur route. I also want to take an opportunity to talk about working at enterprise and some of the benefits there. So, because I have to, a coin has two sides, right? So, with the entrepreneur side, aka contract, the flexibility, the ownership of your schedule or whatever you agree upon, you have full autonomy there. But you don't, at sometimes, not all times, you may not necessarily get benefits. If you're sick and you take time off, 7 times out of 10, you may not get paid for it, right? At least in my contract experience. So with that freedom, there's a caveat to that, you don't have those buffers there. Where enterprise, I get stock options, never had that in my life. Like, my kids, by the grace of God, will be okay in the future, right? I didn't
Yeah.
Didn't get that for contract. Health insurance, amazing. Um, going to the dentist every 6 months, being
Right.
silly, but like those type of things, a consistent check, a consistent, the fact that I work for Microsoft, it holds clout, it holds leverage, even though
Mhm.
it shouldn't. Oh, no, it should, but my ability should hold just as much leverage. But I understand. Like we're gonna call a spade a spade. So there's definitely some benefits there, but also keep in mind because of that, there are rules that I have to follow. There's certain things I can never say on camera, right? There's certain things I have to be so conscious of when I'm talking, and things like that. And that's just something that you guys should kind of consider and leverage. If you're coming into the work, you get in where you fit in. Okay. If it's it doesn't matter. You get in where you fit in so you can get the experience. But if you're more tenure like we are and you have those options, by all means, figure out what works great or what works best for you. But because I have a family and a mortgage and school
Right.
and summer
Right.
fees, because that's a whole nother podcast conversation. My priorities have changed. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to put that out there because there is, you know,
Right.
great
And I think
benefits
that's
in that
And I think
area.
that's a great perspective too. Is like I feel I feel like in this industry and just general, we're goal oriented, right? So like, all right, well, like, what's your goal? Like, if you're like, well, like I really just, I want to have a job where I can kind of clock in, clock out, and kind of, have assignments given to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe jumping into enterprise might be a good situation. I don't. I think that early in careers, I think that contract is a great way to go. It enables you to, it enables you to work in a lot of different types of environments, right? You could work in a small house, you could work for enterprise, you could work for a fun startup tech company or a fun established tech company. I mean, Etsy has a great office, right? Great environment. You might dig that. You might love that kind of stuff, right? And then you might, close a contract and end up working for more of a traditional business environment. You might like that too. And I think contract enables you to jump around a lot, especially if you're younger, where you're not taking care of a family or you're not trying to, save for your retirement, quite, that kind of thing. It gives you a lot of experience in just kind of knowing where do you fit in the story. And I think that's something that contract allowed for me a lot. And another thing I mean, this is like the biggest secret to getting a job ever is networking. Because you get in with a recruiter, right? Like, and bless everybody. And I've been there, right? And you're just sending your resumes out into like the ethos and just watching it like just dissolve into the universe. But the truth of the matter is that, go and go to your like mixers, your meet and greets, like meet hiring managers, meet placement agency managers, build relationships with whomever it may be. And I have some really great relationships with hiring managers and placement agencies still from my contract days, and now I interview people for them. And but I love to reference, like refer people to them as well. But that way, your contract is up, you're in constant communication with them, you're having lunch with them, and you're building this relationship with them. So like, let's say that you do want to go full time, or you are looking for something, or you're building this relationship. That networking makes a huge difference when it comes to looking for a full time gig. Um, just sending your resume out, I feel like there are opportunities out there, but now everything has, like system scanning and keyword analysis and all that. But handshake deals are still made quite a bit. And being out there and networking and getting to know people on that level is really important. I feel I've learned to do that a lot just from my contracting days, where I'm hopping houses every 10 to 18 months, and I'm staying in contact with my placement agencies and all of this kind of stuff. I think that has been really valuable, knowing how different procedures work. Working at one big company, like let's say you're working at 7-Eleven here down in Dallas, right? They work differently than American Airlines works, right? We have different agile processes. We work with customers different. We have creative briefs versus project objectives, whatever it may be. And as you pick these things up as a contractor, you bring a lot to the table when you move from company to company. And there's a lot of worth out there, and just not just your ability and experience of of creating products, but the procedure. And that can really, I mean, that can save a lot of time for a company. So I think that's another big benefit of contracting is the environmental, I don't want to say soft skills. I'm going to say we're going to get rid of that. We need to coin a different phrase for that. Can we just call them personal skills? We want to human skills. I think we can call that human
I
skills that
like
we
human
bring.
skills a lot
Human
because
skills. We'll
AI,
call them,
let's do that.
yeah, we're
Hashtag
officially getting rid of
human
soft skills. No
skills.
more. Hashtag human skills. You're bringing your human skills from placement to placement, right? And you're sharing that socially with other people, other professionals. And it really enriches your environment, their environment, the entire work process in general. And I mean, there's a lot of benefit for contract. And I know that for a lot of people out of the gate, that's going to be their first gig, right? This contract gig. And there is so much worth and value in that I think that people should really consider, instead of just jumping into a full-time gig where sometimes you can get really siloed. You can get siloed individually, creatively, within the process, and you may not have enough experience to know how you can make things better for you, what the opportunities are for you. That's
I
my
agree with that.
contract thoughts there.
No, and I would say this. We're human and humans make mistakes, and I just own mine. Like it's at a point now that I'm just so humbled. Like between technology, between things changing, between the weather, the cicadas coming out, like I'm just humbled. The eclipse, I'm humbled. Okay. So with that, be humble through this process and just know that you're going to make mistakes. When you're a contract, those mistakes don't always haunt you. When you work for a company, I made a mistake at Microsoft and I'm good, don't get me wrong, but it takes something to get out of that. Like you have to, know the processes and all these secret laws that organizations have when it comes to communicating and maneuvering through things. And it's awesome if you can. It's awesome to make the mistakes in a role that's not per se permanent because you don't necessarily have to dig yourself out of it. That's just my personal experience. But also with time and mistakes comes the resilience of being okay and falling forward, or what we call a growth mindset. And it's all about failing fast and early, ideally, so you can pick up and you fail forward. So when you get back up, you're a little more ahead and you know that much more. And now you're able to just iterate again and do it again until you get it right. And contract was very helpful in my imposter syndrome and all of that. It happened all over again at Microsoft because these people are just brilliant in all these different ways. But after a while, you will learn that you also have something to bring to the table that no one else has. And again, that confidence will come up. So it's so funny. It's awesome to kind of talk about like, what was my first job and how did I get here? And to your point, I mean, I think I got here because of my soft skills, that networking that you talked about.
I'm sorry, I don't know what a
Again,
soft skill is.
oh, you're right. Excuse me. Hashtag this. We're no longer calling it a soft skill. We're calling it a human skill. You
Human
should
skills.
know
That's
how
what.
to
All right.
talk
That's
to people.
yeah.
You should know how to communicate or how to be quiet when someone else is speaking. All of these human skills that are very valuable in the tech world. And I know you can attest to that. Like they're very
Yeah.
valuable. Um,
Absolutely. I mean, and I think one thing that I found is one of the lessons I learned. I learned this. I mean, they're definitely trial by fire, really across the board. But I worked at a smaller agency, and by smaller I mean it wasn't like Saatchi and Saatchi or BBDO. It wasn't a big house, right? It was a privately owned, probably one of the last relatively big, houses for marketing communications. And what I loved about that environment was the ability to just walk into a meeting, talking to, client relations. And I mean, the principal of our firm, the owners of our firm, the president, or even they were there, right? They were all there, and my creative director, all of that. And just kind of having sideline, what we say, water cooler conversations with them. And oh, Tiffany and Company's coming, or who else, Coca-Cola or Kellogg or something, and just kind of talking to them about it and just being like, I would love to sit in that meeting. They're like, okay, like great, and I was able to just like walk. I was a graphic designer, right? I'm just a graphic designer, right? That's my job. Put pixels on screen. But I was just like, I would love to sit in that meeting. I would love to talk to them. I would love to like work on a pitch for them. and just making myself useful and just being in there and learning, picking up the slack of what I hadn't learned previously in my roles. And they said, okay, great. Yeah, go in there. Like, absolutely. Here's what we're talking about. This is, do your homework. The meeting's at 3. Great. And I was able to join in a lot of really amazing conversations and get to know a lot of clients on a one-to-one simply by just showing up, just by, asking to be there. I am interested. This is what I know. This is what I feel about it. Like, I was looking at their brand. This looks, I was looking at their creative strategy. I think, these could be some good ideas. Like, great, come to the table. It's at 3 o'clock. And that kind of medium house level really, it was scary, right? Like you're saying, I mean, there's a lot of failure because failure is just things that I don't know yet. And, but I learned a lot rapidly, and it built a lot of confidence in me, a lot of humility as well. Um, and, next thing you know, you're talking to the creative director from Nordstrom who is lighting a fire under you at 6:30 in the morning, and you just got to go. And I mean, yeah, it's scary, but it was fun. I was young. I was in my mid 20s, and um, but that kind of level of agency life kind of thing, like that built like a root in me as well. Like, I still carry a lot of that with me. I work at enterprise. My life now is purely tech, um, and product, rather than like creative and campaign like I was doing previously. But still, I have that motivation in me that I learned from that kind of experience. So, um, and then moving into enterprise, well, we'll get into that later. But again, like, that's also out there. And I think um, getting in as, working tech in a creative environment, um, I don't think it's as lenient as a lot of 100% tech companies are. It's still very, like, I want to say Mad Men style ad agency, pretty much what you would expect, but it's very hyper, and it keeps you on your toes, and you have to think very quickly. And I think that offered a lot to me as well. I'm going on a tangent, but it's, those kinds of experiences. Because I mean, what is Microsoft like? How would you explain like the environment, the working environment of Microsoft?
It's so interesting. It's like everything isn't controlled and in order, and then it's not, but it is. I have no idea. I'm like, it's almost like, how can I see? I'm going off culture. So, as a black lady, we have a whole bunch of different hairstyles, right? So, back in the day, they would have like these bun hairstyles where it would be like a hump on your head. And it was like super stylish, but it was three different things at once. That's kind of like how it works at Microsoft. So, you have these rules because you have security and things that you can't mess with that stuff, right? And so those are the rules and the boundaries that you may or may not have in a different environment. um, and everything has its place, but it's a huge company, right? So you mentioned earlier, like with the mid-size or the smaller companies, how you can just walk in a room and walk in a meeting. Well, I can't do that, but all the resources are at my fingertips if I can find it. So it's an interesting it's it's an interesting view because in one way everything is exactly where it should be, but it's so big that you don't know where it is. It's like walking into a big huge library and you know it's all there. Thank God for the computer and the database that you could type stuff in, but now you have to know what questions to ask. And that's how it is at Microsoft. And that's why, to your point, it is so important. We kind of toss the networking word around, but it's important in every facet of your life. I am learning at Microsoft, you do not burn bridges because you're going to see someone going up or down. And so it's important to understand how to talk to people and when to communicate. And it's all the stuff you'll learn as you're in the industry, but it's super important to understand and be able to maneuver through. And so I think for me, I'm so grateful to be at Microsoft, one of the best places that I've ever worked at when it comes to like work life balance and not having so much pressure. But the pressure is different because you have the pressure of creating a product that's at a certain standard, right? So it's a different type of pressure. But I love it. I'm super grateful to be there. But it's It's better than organized chaos, but that's the best phrase that I can use right now.
It's right. No, I
It's
agree.
so much better than that, but that's the best thing that I can use right now to explain it.
It is. I agree. When I first moved into enterprise,
Right, and you're at
and
Walmart, so we need to talk to you. Walmart does everything.
have you heard of that? Yeah, it's a small startup. It's a small startup company out of Arkansas. Um, and no, when I first started working for enterprise, my first job, and so this is how I just envisioned it, right? Like I envisioned like Starfleet Enterprise, right? A huge, giant ship full of a mass amount of people who are all doing their thing, and I don't know what everyone's doing to keep this giant thing moving, right? Or maybe space is the thing that's moving. I'm not really sure. Someone's going to chime in about that, but and that's how I envisioned it, right? So like my first enterprise job, I was like, this is a very impactful company, but it's a very slow moving company. There's a lot of little widgets happening very rapidly, and that moves this whole thing in a very prominent direction, but it's kind of a slow moving thing. And also, I mean, not that I've experienced this in any of my companies, nor have you, I'm sure, but I have heard that in enterprise companies, you learn a lot about bureaucracy. There's a lot of, sharing products, and people are coming and going in different areas, and you really do learn kind of the nuances of dealing with big business in that aspect, um, which is also I feel like just in really important. Maybe, I mean, I don't know, I love working in big companies. I've Before Walmart, I was working for American Airlines, who was a small startup company as well, which is a joke. Anyway, but I've learned how to work with big companies, because it's important, right? Because it's not just, how you deal with your projects and your specs and the people you work with, but the whole like you were saying, it's you are part of the Microsoft company and the family, right? And you represent Microsoft, right? I represent Walmart, I represent these and I felt, for the first time, I really felt a part of something like bigger than just myself. But I also had to come to respect like all of the subtle movements that were necessary to make things progress forward. Where like in smaller houses, very rapid moving, whether clients are coming and going, or a really small house where you're just like trying to keep the doors open, this there was a lot of decision making that had to go on to it. And it taught me how to kind of respect the stillness of decision making, how to, to refine. And, you were talking about your presentation today, and like the importance of that, the importance of making very strategic moves, I think is important everywhere. But in enterprise, I felt it for the first time, that like how important it was to be strategic about my decisions, and how to move forward, and not just products, but also the opportunities that I had in my own profession. You know, being the career growth, that kind of thing. There was a lot happening that in a smaller house, we wore a lot of hats, but in a bigger enterprise, there's all of these nuanced pathways that you can go. And I think that's something that really showed up for the first time, however many years ago it was, working for a big company. So, I mean, in that sense, as you were going through your career and you're in enterprise and all of that, how do you feel your career growth has kind of energized or changed, or your perspective has changed kind of based on your working environment? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've had a journey, because I went most of us, not all, go through
Mhm.
like the imposter syndrome, or that new thing that we've coined where you just like, why am I here? Do I deserve to be here? And I'm past
Right.
that now. Thank goodness. But it was really interesting as far as like the process and the growth. Because here's what I found, and this is me being about 3 years at Microsoft specifically, not the industry. But you get to a point where you learn that you have something to bring, and whatever that thing is, that's your thing. You make that thing fantastic. You make it shine like gold, right? If they like silver, you make it shine like silver. Whatever they like, you make it shine like that. And so you get to a point where you learn that, in the industry. And I think, again, if I can sum it up, because I'm seeing the time, what's most important with career growth is your ability to solve a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pick a good problem to solve. Pick a problem that your manager has. Pick a problem that your stakeholder has. You don't have a job yet and you're trying to get portfolio work and you don't know what to do. Go on one of these websites, one of these mom and pop shops. I mentioned this before, but I got my first work from an RV place. My husband was, I don't know, it was Father's Day or something. I'd never done an RV. I've been watching HGTV. Like, let's do an RV. And so we rented an RV. It was amazing. We did an RV park for the weekend. It was awesome. Like, it was really, really fun. And their website was the worst. Like, it was the worst. I didn't know what I was doing. It was really hard to visually see. There's clearly some accessibility issues. There were color contrast, just all these issues. And again, um, I'm a good designer. So I'm like, hey, let me design. I'm going to take this trip. Let me design your website for free, and you give me a free 4-day rental.
Cool.
Say less, right? And so now not only do I have that in my portfolio, now I have a satisfied customer. Now I have someone that can give me a recommendation on my LinkedIn. Hello.
Right.
And
Right.
right. And then now I have some real world experience. And so that's what's worked for me. That's what has always worked for me. I've always taken a problem that no one wants to deal with. And I'm like, I'll take the time. I'll take the time to sit down and make space for that deep thinking and that strategy that you were talking about that no one talks about is necessary. The rich people do it. They go to sleep at 8 o'clock, they meditate for an hour, they get up at 4. They know exactly what's going on in the day because they took that time and they took that space to sit down and say, what am I thinking about? What problem do I have to solve? How do I solve it? What is this going to do for me? How much money do I want to make? How much time do I have? Like they're sitting down and they're hashing those things out. And I haven't done that to that capacity, but I'm starting to do that for my career growth. So if I can say what's worked for me and what I'm sure will work for you, find a problem, join a group and fix the problem of people not being able to communicate together, or they have an Excel spreadsheet and you want to make it more automated. Create a chat GPT. Those are very easy to do these days. Like just find a solution and people will pay you very good money and even more money if you can communicate that solution effectively. Those are
Absolutely.
my 2
I mean,
cents there.
talking about tips for, career growth, and which leads to opportunity, which leads to money, right? Because one of my favorite quotes is, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And, when you're starting, like the trade economy, right? That networking is not just about what someone can do for you or what you can do for them. It's what we can do for each other, right? That's the symbiosis that you want to make in a true, like, in a relationship, whether it be with a potential client. You're like, okay, and sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's not, I'll work for money. Sometimes I'll work for an RV. We're like, I mean, when I was starting, I was like, yeah, I'll work for some backstage passes, right? Like, I'll work to go hang out with a band afterwards. Like, that barter mentality, that barter economy is really important. Don't ever do anything for free, but make sure that you're building a relationship with your clients. Make sure that you're growing. And I think that's a really important tip for career growth, from starting from the beginning, going all the way through, is, how can we work together, whether it be with, your first client, or, a big client, or with your creative director or whomever it would be. I think, that potential for career growth really comes from that mentality of going out there and seeking it, and building those relationships. And, we've talked, making those things happen, finding that opportunity for yourself, and building that relationship. Being a problem solver and being useful, is that's just the way to go. Whether you're in your first year or in your 20th year, then you always want to find a place, for yourself to continue to learn, to continue to grow, and to be useful to someone, to make sure that you're in there, and you're constantly feeling fulfilled, professionally, creatively, and it keeps you going, right? That's the flywheel that keeps careers going. Really, you want to make sure that you're fulfilled. And it seems, I think, especially in the beginning of, one's profession, um, we strive, it's very difficult. We strive a lot for that, and it seems kind of like a pipe dream, but that's just the truth, right? Find something that is fulfilling to you, and you will be energized to work for it. Otherwise you're just going to feel stagnant, but I promise any decision that's made, any step forward, even if it's a half step, an eighth of a step, is still a step. And we've all been there before, and I think that those are really important lessons for people who are starting out, and sometimes people who just need to ignite, some energy in their career, even 20 years in, thinking about what about this is exciting to me and what is fulfilling to me, and those are those mantras that we just, professionally speaking, probably just need to keep reminding ourselves that it's important, not just something that we do, but something we want to do. I think are those are my little thoughts for career growth and my human skills.
I love that. I felt like you were talking to me as a parent. Like, look, you chose this, okay? You go take care of those loud kids. So I'm kidding.
The inner
But
monologue
I
of
do want
tough
to make
love.
this. I know, right? That was a joke, you guys. I do
Yes.
want to make this plug though. Completely unashamed about this, but I have to make this plug. One of the things that I like most about Careerist is the flexibility that we have to adjust things as the world changes, right? So, for example, we're able to implement ChatGPT now because that's what it is. It's a part of technology. It's a fantastic way to be able to get new ideas. And I personally use it almost every day. I'm not even lying to you because, yeah, I have to be able to like go back and forth in those thoughts. But let me do this shameless plug about Careerist. The second thing that I like most about Careerist is the mentorship. And here is why I say that. Strategy is no joke. Like, that's a serious thing. Like, this is like, let's switch it to serious, okay? Extremely serious that you take the time to figure out what do you want your next 6 months to a year to look like. If you're looking to change your career, perfect. We have a program for you. That's great. But what does that look like for you? Where do you want to work? How much money you want to make? Don't get me started with all the questions because I had to do this with myself. What I appreciate about careers is the ability to have a mentor to talk to. Like, man, what if Andrew was there when I was going through this and I had someone like him to be able to bounce ideas off? How much more ahead would I be than where I am? And I really, really, really appreciate that about careerists and just that ability to do the work and do, the mechanical aspect of things. You got to know Figma. You have to know those things. But there's also a human factor to it, and there's also a strategy component that you need time with. And that mentor time gives you the ability to sit down and say, hey, Andrew, I know I want to make a lot of money. I know I want to make beautiful things, but I have no idea what that looks like and how I can do it in a year.
Right.
Because I don't plan
Right.
on being out of work in a year, right? So help me
And
out
I
and have the ability to do that.
and I agree. I think that's one of the, something with careers is not just having, there's a lot of opportunities to learn, the tools, but also the mentorship is really great. And having the opportunity even just to say, this is my objective is to become a product designer, or I don't even really know what it is, but these are the things I like, right? Like, I'm like, I can work with that, let's have it, but I don't know unless you tell me, right? So, tell me what you want to do, tell me what you want to make, tell me, do you want security, do you want freedom, do you want, tell me, we can work with that objective here, and that's something I love about careers is that not everyone has the same goals. Like, not all my students, some want to start their own company, they come to the table with, I've got this great idea for a product, I don't know how to make it happen. I was like, well, we can do this, we can do it together. Or they say, listen, I'm pivoting, I've got a family, I'm pivoting my career, I would like to go into product, but I need to be, I need to move in a direction that applies security, I need insurance, I need to move my 401. I'm like, we can work with that too. Everyone has their own goals. And I think, something with careerists and the people who work here is we're all about pivoting to meet that objective for our students. We're going through curriculum all the time. We're mentoring, we're online, we're talking to people about their specific needs, our students. And I do, that is something I find wonderful about careerists, and the way that they handle education is their ability to tailor it to everyone's objective, no matter how abstract that objective may be at the time. But we're here for you. Like, we will strategize with you and help you get there, and kind of teach you what our thought process is like, so they can learn to reach those goals too, and whatever goals are after that as well. We want them to really be able to excel after the fact, so we can they can go off in the world and mentor someone else and be a conduit into this, process later on. So I agree with you. That is a really powerful thing that Careerist offers.
Pay it forward, guys. Pay it forward. Our time
Absolutely.
goes by too fast. I so enjoy talking to you, Andrew.
It does. It does. Oh, honestly, it does. Well, this has been a really good conversation. Yeah, a lot of really great topics. And I love talking to you as well. I think that we hit a few subjects that we might keep on carrying on next week. But yeah, I say keep paying it forward, and we'll do the best we can to keep paying it forward as well. So if anything comes up that we can talk about, if anyone wants to share, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to take those objectives and move with it.
Yes, and please do not send us LinkedIn messages. Like, okay, but I can only imagine that our inbox is about to get flooded. Sign up for Careerist, guys.
Put it all
Yes,
there.
I mean, we're gonna try to respond, don't get me wrong, but if we don't, you guys don't get mad at us. This is global. So put
I
that
apparently have a lot more free time or a lot less interested parties. But I'll take those messages.
Wait till we put this webinar up there. They're gonna be, well, I know they're gonna be like, click, Andrew, hello, my name is. You're gonna get all those messages. But we do
I'll do
hope
what I
to hear
can.
from you guys, and we hope
All
y'all
right,
move
Camille,
forward with the program and stuff. So
absolutely. Let us know what you think. Well, Camille, this is an absolute pleasure with you, and I'll talk to you next week.
yes, until next time.
All right, bye.